Hey, what's up? Thanks for joining me here at the Coding Station. In this channel, I make videos on how to write code for simple to complex algorithms using different programming languages. And I will try to make it beginner friendly as much as possible to help you guys start off your programming career or passion. The next few videos are going to be a Python programming series where I'm going to explain you all the concepts in Python, and I want to provide you all the information you would need to be a better programmer. But don't forget, this channel is about all programming languages, so you're doing yourself a favor by hitting that subscribe button and the bell icon. Alright, let's start off by looking through the basic building blocks for any programming language, pretty much. So they are the variables, operators, conditional statements, loops, and functions. So doesn't matter how big your application is, these are the things that you're going to use to build that application. So you can let me know if you think I missed anything in this list, but I believe these are the basic things that you would need in any programming language. Of course, the syntax changes, but the concepts remain same. So to start off, let's look at the variables in Python. How would you declare them? How would you use them, or how would you update them? Everything about that. Or yeah, it's gonna be a quick video, but I'll try to cover as much as possible. So for variables, the best thing about Python is you don't have to mention the type or the data type for that specific variable, which means unlike any other programming languages where you specify an int keyword and then the variable name before it, here you just start off with the variable name and assign whatever the data that you want to it. For example, I want to assign a 10 to it, which is an integer, and it does that typecasting implicitly without your involvement in that. And what if I want to write a floating point number? I could just take another variable and just do, for say b is equal to 123.123. Doesn't matter, there is no problem with that. It just takes all that hassle to declare data types and then makes it easy for us on the programmer side. Of course, as the programs as your application gets complicated, you might have certain instances where you want to typecast between the variables, but right now it's out of scope for us, so don't worry. And how do you update a value? Simple, just like in any other programming language, or just simple. It's straightforward. You just update the new value. Or let's take a floating point number. So now it's gonna be this new values. Let's okay. Okay, so in Python you just use a print to print out to the terminal. So let's try printing out a and b values. Yes, you can do that. You can write two values side by side in one single print statement, and Python executes without any problem. If you see that, it printed a 10 and 123.123 side by side because we gave two variables as input to print statement. Now let's see, what if I uncomment these lines? So I assigned 10 to a here, and now I changed it to this number, and then same for the b. So let's see. All right, what if I do print twice? So as you can see, there is no problem in changing the data type for a specific variable because Python does that implicitly without your involvement, and that's the best thing. And I would say that's one thing I love about Python, and of course I love Python programming in general, which is why I started my channel with this Python series as my first few videos. And yes, it is going to be the same for a string. Let's say name is equals to, by that I mean assigned to Manoj, which is my name, and age is whatever, 24. Yeah, I think it's 24. I don't know. Okay, so and now if you print my name and my age, it prints Manoj 24. So things are pretty straightforward in Python, and that's the best thing. I'm gonna repeat that I think multiple times in this video, but yeah, that is the best thing about Python. There's a lot of things done by the compiler by itself without you worrying about it. You can just worry about your own application logic most times without worrying about all this tiny little stuff. But of course, this automatic typecasting is convenient, but it comes with its own set of problems. One big problem will be unintentional change of values. For example, if your application deals with a lot of data or a lot of numbers and maybe integers or floats, whatever it is, like a banking application or whatever, you might because there is automatic typecasting in Python, it might do its own conversion at some point in your algorithm, which you wouldn't see because you didn't debug it, or it is a very big application, and finding one specific point might be a little problematic, or you might ignore that part. But in the end, algorithmically, it doesn't make a difference for it because it does the casting automatically and doesn't throw an error. But for you as a programmer or a user, the final output could not be what you're expecting it to be. So you gotta be careful while writing the program logic to handle all sorts of these cases where this conversion could create problems. Now let's talk about operators in Python. Well, Python definitely have a lot of kinds of operators that you could use for your application, but for now, for our convenience, we're just going to stick to mathematical or arithmetic operators, logical and comparison operators. Let's see a few of our mathematical operators. We don't need all of them for now, so let's see the common ones. So they are addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, and modulo. So these are just the simple operators that you could use on your data variables, whatever. So let's try just doing that in a simplest form. So I'm assigning C is equal to A plus B. Let me just add spaces for your visual clarity. And then D is equals to, let's say, A subtracted by B. Well, by equal to, I mean this is an assignment operator. So pretty much whatever is happening on the right is being assigned to the left side of that equal to, or whatever sign you call it. Assignment operator. That's an assignment operator, by the way. And then E is A times B, and let F be A modulo B. And yep. So that is pretty straightforward, as you see. So for C, it performs an addition between A and B and assigns it to C. Same with D, it performs subtraction between A and B, and depending on what the value is, could be negative, could be positive, it's gonna assign that to D. Same with multiplication and modulus. So let's print them and see and see. I'm just gonna copy this D. Okay, I think that doesn't work in this IDE, but yeah, print D, print E, print. Well, I could just to mention, I could do that in just one print statement, but I didn't want to make a mess like this in just one line, confusing you guys. So okay, my bad. look at me. Just because I have comments indented just for you guys, I thought I'm in a function. Well, I'll tell you why that happened in just a while. But for now, let's just see the output for this piece of code. Okay, do you see that? Yes, you do. So it just basically added these two numbers for the first line, which is C, and then because it is 10 minus 123.123, it just subtracted that and of course assigned a negative sign, because when you subtract a bigger number from a smaller, you get a negative value. And then multiplied the two numbers, and this is the remainder. If I'm not wrong, I might have got confused between. Okay, I didn't add a division. A divided by B. Let's do that. Why not? Print G. See? So this is just normal division, and I think this is quotient you would get. Yes, you would get the quotient on a regular division, and you would get the remainder using the modulus. So make sure you remember that. Let's look into the logical operators. When there are three of these, and, or, and not, each of these operators are used for making a decision when you have multiple conditions to be evaluated. For example, let's take an if statement. I'm going to talk a little more about if in just a while, but for now, I assume you must have a little idea about what an if statement does in any other programming language or in Python, whatever. But yeah, let's say if A is equals to B, print true. Very simple. So this piece of this block of code executes this print statement only if A is equal to B. Simple, right? But what if I have multiple conditions that I need to check before I execute or run this print statement, or whatever is in the place of the print statement? That's when I would use any of these logical operators depending on my use case. So right now I want to check two conditions, and I want to print this true only if both of them are true. So this is when I'm going to use an AND operator, and let's say if A is greater than 100. So for now, even though I have A assigned previously, let me just do it here again just to keep it in the frame. So A is, let's say, 190 and B is 120. Let's try if this prints true or if it does nothing, because even both of these are false for now. What if I make it 120? Okay, 123. So what's the output now? Nothing, because even though A greater than 100 returned true, because A is 123, this piece of condition is false. What if I make that one true as well? True. See? So AND basically compares the two conditions on the other sides of it and sees if both of those conditions return true. If yes, it returns the whole statement as true and lets the piece of code right below that to be executed. Otherwise, it will not allow because it's a false. And what is R? What does R does? It returns the whole statement to be true if either one of the conditions are true. So either A could be equal to B or A greater than 100. And if any one of these conditions are true, you're good to go. So let me try to make this fail one of the conditions. So I do 140 because A is not equal to B, but it's greater than 100. So if I run this, it does print because even though a and b are not equal, a is greater than 100. So one of that conditions evaluated true, so the whole statement evaluated true, and we are in the block of if condition. Now what does not operator do? Let's quickly do something here. Let's change this back to and print it. It doesn't, because it's a false. The whole statement is false because a is not equal to b. One of the condition fails. But what if I add a not keyword here? And let's see it now. Oh, that's magic, right? No, it's not. So basically what not does is it switches, it just reverses the condition there. So if this whole statement returns true, it switches that to false. So if so basically it says if this is not true, or if this is not false, then do it. So if this is false, it is going to invert that false to true. That is why this one executes. What if I make this back to true? Let's try. Oh, it did not, because as I said, it just switches, it reverses that particular, let's say, boolean here. If it's true, it switches it to false. If it's false, it switches it to true. So because our conditions returned true here, because not switches it, so true became false for this if condition to be satisfied, if that makes sense. If not, just ask me, just tell me that where I'm confusing you, so I'll try to make it better in the next videos. But yeah, that's the thing. It just switches the condition to the opposite side. That's what it does. So depending on your use cases, you just keep mixing and matching, or just write multiple conditions using the logical operators and get your task done. So now let's move on to comparison operators. If you have realized, I used two of those operators in this line. One is equal to, and the other one is greater than or not. You can call it that way. But yeah, so operators we have are greater than, less than or not. You could say that like that. Is equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and not equal to. So these are used between two variables or objects depending on your situation. So if I have, so we have a and b here. So if I have to compare if a is greater than b or not, I would say just a greater than or b. So this pretty much returns a true or false based on if it's greater than or less than. And then if you want to see if a is less than b, you would just do a less than b, or let's say a is equal to b. This just takes two variables and returns a true or false based on that condition. So that's it about operators. And now let's see how conditional statements and operators go hand in hand. So if is a conditional statement, that's the one we're going to use it now. There's a different kind of statement that we don't need to know now. We can look at that later in the videos in the course. Well, let me just cut this and then paste it here. I think this is the best place to have this piece of code. All right, so this is a pretty good statement that we already know. So if syntax is similar to any other programming language syntax, except there is no need of using brackets unless there are so many variables that you want to group together. Again, depends on your situation, but this is the syntax. If condition and then you open a colon, and then you just add a tab space to let the compiler know that whatever you're writing here belongs to this block of code. So that's the thing I didn't mention until now in this video about Python, that whenever you're starting a new block, instead of using curly braces like in many other languages, you just start with a colon, and then you go down there, and you'll have to put a tab space for each line, which indicates that those lines belong to the previous block of code, like block whatever. So if I do a tab space here and then write anything here, all this belongs to the if. So everything here runs when this if condition is satisfied. Let me take that off. And so here we have if a is equal to b and a is greater than 100. We said print true, but what if we want to do more of this, more operations just here? You can just do pretty much whatever you need and right there, but you have to keep in mind that you need that tab space, that indentation, to make sure that you're in the block, because Python runs based on indentation. So here the conditions are true. Now let's see if we do that. See, true, and then the conditions are true. Simple as it is. I would like to give more complex examples, but I want to keep this video as simple as possible and as short as possible, so I'll leave that for another video where I'll make a pretty small or concise algorithm trying to cover all these functions that I'm going to talk about today, that I'm talking today, and I put all of those in one single program, and I'll try and make sure you understand that. So that's for another day. So this is how you write a conditional statement. Now let's talk about loops. A loop is nothing but a feature that lets you run a set of lines of code more than one time without having to write it again and again. Let me show you what I mean. Now if I want to print numbers from 1 to 10, I don't have to do this every single time to print that number individually or manually. What I could just do is I could make use of a loop to print numbers iteratively all by itself. And there are types of loops, but the two main or the two loops that we use are for and while loops. If you have a computer science background, you already know that, but otherwise I'm here to tell you what they are. So let's talk about for loop. It starts with the keyword for, and then you initialize a variable, or you just initialize a variable. It could be anything. It's up to you. And then you use this function called range in Python. This range pretty much spreads out the number that you pass in. By that I mean, if you pass in 10, starting from 0, it spreads out numbers until it reaches the count of 10, not the number that you pass in, but if you pass in 10, it doesn't go all the way until 10, but it goes until you have 10 digits or 10 times 10 numbers. Let me show you what I mean. So if I print that number, we should see numbers from 0 to 9, and that is because this 0 to 9 are 10 numbers, right? So that's why it happened. If you want to see 10, you have to go all the way until 11, because it starts from 0. See, but there are 11 digits if you notice. Instead, if you want to see numbers printing from 1 to 10, you can just print number plus 1, and then that's going to give you 1 to 10. Simple as it is. Range, but this range function has a little more functionality, but for now let's just stick to this for convenience. And apart from the for loop, and the main thing about for loop is we use that when we know how many times we want to run that piece of code. By that I mean it could be a solid number, or it could be length of an array, or it could be length of a data structure. So doesn't matter what that is, but you know that there is a set limit for that instead of a condition. And the while loop is good when you have a condition that you need to check every time, and if that is true, you want to perform certain task. That's when you use a while loop. Let me show you what I mean by that. If I want to write the same printing digits from 1 to 10 using a while loop, what all I would need is a flag or a variable that keeps track of the status. And again, implementations could vary, but this is the general concept between a while loop. And then let me take an initial value for a number. And now I'm going to start my while loop with the keyword while, and I'm going to specify a condition. But here condition is while flag, which means while true, print number. So if I print this now, it is going to continuously print 0 because of two things. One is flag is always true in our case, and the next thing is the number is never being incremented. So if you to fix both of these issues, what we need to do is we need to increment number every time after we print it out. So I'm gonna increment it 1 by 1 every single time after I print it. And again, I want to quickly mention about this operator. This is an increment and assign operator. So what this does is, first it increments by the number you specify, by the value you specify here, and then assigns it to the variable on the left side. So now you have number being incremented by 1 every time after it prints. And now you need a stopping condition. That means just to make the loop stop. You could either use either ways you need to check. You need to know when to stop. For now, I want to stop when the number is greater than 10, by which I mean once it reaches 10, you print out the 10, and then when it goes beyond 10, just stop the loop. I'm gonna set the flag to false. So what happens now is, supposedly technically it should keep printing numbers up to 10, and then once it reaches 10, after printing 10, it increments it by 1. That means it is going to be 11, and that's when this if statement returns true, because 11 is greater than 10. That's true, and then it sets the flag to false. And because the flag is false, this while condition fails. While false, that means the condition is failed, so the loop should be broken out. So that's what should happen, and it did happen. But if you notice, we started number at 0. That is the reason we have 0 included. So if you want numbers from 1 to 10, you just have to start from 1 and then print all the way up to 10. So now you have 1 to 10 numbers. And yeah, I initially thought of making a separate talking about functions separately, but I think this is the best way to finish off by explaining functions. A function is nothing but it's just a block of code that performs that have operations related to a certain task. So in a function basically does a certain task. It's a feature, and everything you write in a function relates to that feature. Let's say imagine a situation where I want to be able to use this printing numbers feature anywhere in my code. I don't want to write this loop again and again and again. It is like 5 lines of code. That is when I'll make use of a function. Let me show you what I mean. Initially, first to declare a function, you use a define keyword. def means define, and now you write a function name. It can be anything, it's up to you. Now I'm gonna name it print _numbers _sequence. That means print numbers in sequence. Okay, let me also add in sequence. And now, as I say, we're gonna start into the block into that function. And I don't want to write it all the way again. I'll copy all this code or I'll cut all this code into this function. Now, whenever I want to use this print numbers feature, I would just go and call this function wherever in my program that I want to be able to print the numbers. So it does the same thing. But the difference is, every time you want this feature, you don't have to write all this while loop again and again and again. You make use of this function, and then that's all it's gonna do. It's gonna print out, and your code is gonna look much more cleaner. And another best part about a function is you can pass in values or parameters and use them in dynamically in your function, in your algorithm. So here, instead of hard coding 10 here, I just added a limit, and whenever I pass in a value to the limit, this function here catches it and it makes use of that variable, and then you don't have to worry about changing here the limit here every single time, because if you want to reuse this function in different places with different set limits, all you have to do is call the function with whatever the limit is. So that's all. So let's see what happens. It is 10. If I do 5, it prints all the way until 5. So if you have multiple situations where you want to print different number of values, you just change this parameter. You can have any number of parameters, limit, and any number of parameters. But the thing is, you need to pass them in sequence. Now let's say, in sequence. But there's a good thing about Python parameters is random. So I'm not going to make use of this random parameter, but just to show you. Now let's try and see what it says. If you see, there's a missing one required positional argument, limit. So that's because even though you think you're passing a limit, because you're passing only one, and this is the first parameter you're passing, it goes directly into the first parameter that's the function is accepting. So it goes into random, not into the limit. So you need to pass in limit as second parameter. It's running, but random has 5 in it, and you didn't make use of it. So here, what we can do is to be able to make go out of the way. What you can do is, I will do this. Okay, let me just say random, and I will just do limit is equal to none for now, or let's say 5. Oh, okay, none for now, and that is the default value for limit. So if you don't pass anything for limit, it will just take none for it. Okay, yeah, just because that's none and we're comparing between a number and a none, there is another error. I don't want to explain that in this video. This should be simple supposedly. So 5 is the default limit, and if you see, random has 5 in it, the 5 that we passed, but the default is 5 for limit. Even if I do 100 here, limit is taking 5 because that's the default. If you want to pass in something to limit, then you do this. The second parameter would be the limit that you want to use in your function. Now I just want to end talking about functions by this last return statement. Return is a good way either to pass on value back to where the function is being called, or either just to acknowledge that the function has been successfully executed. By which I mean, I could just say function successfully executed. And the thing is, even if I do this, okay, let me take off this random for now. I don't want to confuse confuse you. Now if I run this, everything runs perfectly, but you don't see this anywhere. That's because you're returning the value back, but you're never taking it. You don't have any arrangement to catch that value that is returned. That's when you add a variable, say a response, and then this response, what it does is it catches that return value. If you print response, you will get that message because whenever this is returning, it is coming back to where it was called, and because we are using an assignment operator, it assigns it back to the variable on the left side. So this is a very useful feature or a useful thing that when you are writing multiple functions or a program with multiple functions where you have to communicate between all those functions based on what your algorithm is. So it is definitely a good feature functionality to use. And if you notice here, we're passing the value 10 to the function, and we have 5 here. Which value does the Python take as the value that it should use? Well, it's definitely going to be what you passed. Then why do we have it? That's because even if you don't pass in anything, it takes that value as 5 without throwing out any error. It is a useful thing to use depending on how you want to process your error, because sometimes you want to know when a value is not passed in, because that could be a required argument. So that in that case you might not want to use a default value, because that way you would get an output, but that might not be what you need or what you're expecting, and that only adds any extra confusion to your algorithm. But I just wanted to mention that you could do this. If you pass in a value, it takes what you passed. Otherwise, it's just gonna stick to what value you just set as a default. Well, that is all about functions. If you have observed, we have used all the concepts we just saw in this video in this one single function. We have variables, we have comparison operators, we have assignment, we have conditional statements, we have a loop. So usually that's how a function is going to be. It'll have everything that you would normally do separately, but the best part is it makes it reusable. Alright, that is all for this video. I just wanted to talk about basic Python functionalities, and I just did that. In the next video, I want to show you how to write a full-fledged algorithm by making use of all the concepts we just saw in this video. And for that, you need to know when our video is uploaded, so go hit that subscribe button and bell icon, and that's also going to motivate me to make more videos. And as you know, this is a new channel, I definitely need your support, so please do that. Thank you.